If we could start to come to order, I'd appreciate it.
We need to get going. We're gonna be running.
We've got a lot of material to get through. We good?
Hello. How are you?
Mic check? Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We're good? Okay. If we could come to order, I'd appreciate. We still missing stuff? Welcome to the third session of the Laurel Boys and Girls Club Financial and Operational Review. Tonight, we are moving into the financial evaluation phase of this, and Mr. Brown and the Board of Directors of the club have graciously killed, I don't know, must be at least one big, maybe two small trees, putting all this together. We do appreciate all the hard work here. We realize how hard this all to pull together. So what I'd like to do, if everybody's got, you should have 14 manila folders. There's 1 through 13, and there's 10-1 and 10-2. So make sure you got all the material.
Missing 13.
All right, we'll get you 13. And you should have 3 other loose pieces of paper, one called the Youth Sports Policy from the City of Laurel, one called the Laurel Boys and Girls Club Task Force Request, and one called a memorandum from the mayor on the voucher and scholarship programs. I think that's everything. I'm looking over at Jenny and Miss Mills, and is that it? There's no more paper? How many reams of paper did this take? Boxes. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, I just wanted to know, we finished pretty quickly last time, and I just wanted to see if there was anything else that people didn't have a chance to say of my colleagues here around the table. If there's anything anybody wants to add from last week. Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Brown up to the microphone. Make sure it's on, sir. And I think your objective tonight is to help us get through this mountain of paper in whichever way you think is best for us to understand. And is it on? There should be a button on the side. And just tap it. Let's see if we get some sound.
It's on.
Is it on?
Green light's on.
Okay. Okay, we're good. So we're in your hands tonight, sir. Walk us through this however you think is the easiest for us to understand it. I know that my colleagues here will be not bashful in asking questions. So the floor is yours.
Okay, I wanted to go over the operations of the club first. Me and you had talked about how the club operates. I was going to actually have Mike Sarich go over that. Is that okay?
Sure, however best. Mike, you can just do it right from your mic.
You know how the board, how we meet.
In terms of the board meetings, we have regular board meetings. We follow standard Robert's Rules of Orders to the best of a volunteer board's capability. We meet, we have quorum, we have a minute taker, and we go through the minutes of the previous meeting. We have an agenda that's printed. Usually there's guests that are there presenting either local sports groups or local groups that may want to use the facility or partner with the club will come, and the meetings are, generally informal. They're not super formal, but we do adhere to Robert's Rules of Orders, motions and seconds and roll calls and the like. But that's generally how the meetings go. In terms of a board of directors perspective. Is that what you were looking for, Mr. Brown?
Right, and then like you said, we have minutes. We have committees. Everyone is assigned to a committee. We just added an advisory board in January. I believe we also had elections during that period. The advisory board comprises of City of Laurel residents. We have actually 4 people on there, one from each part of the greater Laurel area, and then we have City of Laurel residents on there. We also changed our way of going after commissioners. What we're requiring now is that they be from the city of Laurel, because we've had some problems in the past where organizations have basically bucked up and took a lot of our participants with them. We feel if you have an investment in the city, that won't happen. Each person is assigned, each board member is assigned to a committee. The advisory board also has on it the people that use the facility, whether it be a dance group or the Laurel Chess Club, anyone that has some type of investment in the club. They must serve on the advisory committee. So that's basically it. And then we have a book that's passed down from all the presidents that give you the rules of how the club is conducted.
Okay. How often are your board members elected, and how are they elected?
They're elected every 2 years. What we do is we send out an email to all the registered folks, and then it's spread a word. What we found, though, in the last few years is it's no one wants to be on the board. It's a big commitment, and that's one of the things I wanted to show you in the 990, where you will see with most boards where the president may put in 1 hour a week. Here, you're looking 30 to 40, and that's across the board with everyone that's on that board. So it's a totally different makeup. It's a serious commitment. So most folks just don't want to give up that time.
Okay, appreciate that. Are there any other questions about the board makeup?
The documents we were passed out last week really summarizes the things you're going to talk about today, like the board and stuff.
Correct.
Any other questions on the board makeup, how it's run? Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Why don't you go ahead and move into the financial section? And you're going to have to point out which documents you want us to pick up while you're talking about them.
I wanted to look at number 7, which is the 990s. That's what when I first came to the club, that's the first thing that I looked at was the 990, because the 990 is going to give you a picture of what you're dealing with. It goes into your net assets, your revenue, your functional expenses, your board members.
Okay, so we got a lot of documents inside
There's
the
a
7.
lot of
Which
them.
one would you like us to go to?
I would just go to the last one. They're in there from 2005 up, and then you'll see there's a financial statement in there, and then there's the audits in the 990s.
So the December 2012 to May 2nd, 2013, or?
Right, it would be November 2011,
Okay,
2010.
gotcha.
The club's fiscal year, which I found strange when I first got there, is November. It ends in November.
So this is the latest one that's dated November 30th, 2011.
Correct, because they're not due to do their taxes until July. Nonprofits have until July.
Okay.
Right.
So this
And
is
what'll happen in most nonprofits, they do what they call extensions, and you'll see it through, if you go through any Boys and Girls Club, what you'll see is that a lot of times they apply for extensions. It could be for one thing or another. It could be because of the independent audit, may take too long, or they simply don't have the money to pay the independent auditor. In the club's case, it's been both. Yes.
No, 2000.
I see that you've been audited this year. How far back have you been audited versus reviews or compulations?
It's on, the date should be on that form there.
No. I mean, how well, yeah.
Yearly. We're audited every year.
you got audited this last year.
Correct.
Okay, do you get audited every year, or do you have a review by the CPA firm or a compilation? There's different standards.
You're audited every year. There's an independent audit done every year.
So you pay or get an audit done, the most in-depth review that you can get, not a compilation or a review?
No, it's an audit.
Full-fledged
It's a full-fledged.
audit. Thank you.
501c3s are required to do full-fledged audits.
Okay,
Right.
thank
And
you.
then it's explained in the independent auditor's report what they do. So the last audit was completed January 30th of 2013.
Do we have that?
Yeah, that's this one.
What's the date on it? 2011?
Correct, November 30th, 2011, and then it says and 2010.
Okay.
It should be the first one in the packet. And then also in the packet is the capabilities of the firm that we use. It's a firm out of Baltimore called Gross Mendelson.
I have a question. Is there a tax return for 2011? All I have
Yeah,
is a
there's a
tax return
990.
for 2010 that was completed on February the 8th, 2013.
That's what I'm telling you. If you look on the top part there where it says 2011, you see on the first page where it says November 2011,
It says November 30th,
2011.
okay? That's for 10, though.
That's for 11.
But doesn't it say on the form that says 2010?
It says 2010 on the form, but it's for. That's why I was explaining to you what how the fiscal year works for the club. It works for. That is from December 1st, correct,
Right.
to November 30th, 2011. So that's for the year of 2011.
Mr. Frederick, I pulled the latest 990 off GuideStar, and it is for 2010, but it was filed July 2012. So that means technically they have until July of this year to file the one actually.
2012.
For 12, correct.
So they're always
You're always behind.
6 months, eight months, whatever it is. Okay.
Right, because of the way that the club's fiscal year falls, and that's what the board was going through. We were trying to get it changed to 12, because if you do that, then now you wouldn't have this problem here. Because when we send out to grantors, that's what happens.
And Mr. Brown, I would imagine that you'd be more than happy to, as soon as that document is filed, that you'd be more than happy to share it with the members of this committee.
Right, the 2012 is not due until
July, right?
July.
Right. But as soon as
Right.
as soon as it's ready, prepared, there's no problem with sharing it, and it'll be posted and it's public information anyway.
And again, if you look at, that's what I was talking about to you earlier about the extensions. That's what most of these nonprofits do.
Okay, you also provided, looks like a balance sheet, or, I don't know, what do you call this? Laurel Boys and Girls Profit and Loss, December 1, 2012 to May 2, 2013. What would you call this?
I think that's
thing
something that Monique asked for.
Okay,
It's a P&L.
That would be an income to expense statement.
okay,
I call it.
That's separate from the 990.
gotcha. All right.
So what I did, I tried to give you what we
understand,
are,
I
where we're at
understand. To
presently.
make sure what I got.
Right.
So, do you want to walk through this and give us some idea of your understanding of it? And
Well, I mean, on page 2, it goes into the mission. On page, actually, we'll start off on the first page, where it shows you the gross receipts. It goes into the contributions and grants. I mean, this document is extensive. And then it goes through what your total revenue was that year, and then your total expenses. And then you could see that prior year, we were minus 22, 231. And then the second year, you will see where we were minus 76, 947. What they include in this is depreciation. So if you don't include the depreciation into this, then you wouldn't see that loss. So when grantors look at your document, they don't include depreciation.
And what's that a depreciation on?
Your building, right, on the building. And then going through the document, it goes through the required schedules that we must have in here. Again, it's what I had told you earlier, how it goes over how your board operates.
Okay, can you take me back? I'm sorry, I'm slow. On page 3, I'm trying to understand the difference between unrestricted net assets at the beginning of the year and unrestricted net assets at the end of the year.
Unrestricted assets, net assets is something like when you get money. You may get money and it doesn't say, okay, you have to use this money for programs. You can use it for anything. So you would be able to use it for operations and stuff like that.
So is that money in the bank?
I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, what page? What page?
On page 3 at the bottom. I'm just trying to understand what it's telling me, that's all.
Page,
Page
for the 2012.
Page 3 of the financial statements, November 30th.
Oh, okay, I'm looking.
Yeah, we're on the P&L.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, down here at this end.
Can we go ahead and answer that one, because this is a good summary, it kind of helps.
Yeah.
Which one?
The question number 3 usually.
Okay, on page 3, you took me through, some of this, and I'm just trying to understand what's the term unrestricted net assets? Is that money in the bank?
Yeah, see, I was on a different thing. I was looking at the 990. You're looking at the financial statement.
I just started
right,
at the beginning of the
right.
form.
Page 3.
Of the November
Got it.
3rd, November 3rd, 2011 financial
I
statement.
thought that's where you guys were talking, because some of the other numbers matched up.
It was because it's Mass P&L, so.
So I'm just trying to understand. So it's got your support and revenue or your expenses, both in 11 and 10, shows the difference in the 2 years. And then you got this term unrestricted net assets.
Okay, the way that I understand what unrestricted means, basically that it can be used for anything.
But that's not
money in the bank.
money in the bank.
Right, no.
That's
No.
equity in the building.
That's like your building, because the building's worth 2.1 million.
And then equipment and then liquidation, probably liquidation price, liquidation value rather that the auditors place on the club's, quote unquote assets. Although in this case, the assets are severely limited, restricted. So it is I think it is in some ways a misleading, unrestricted net assets, because it's not like it's not like we can sell the building to, like one of Mr. DiPietro's developments, for example.
So why don't they have it listed as a restricted asset?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's the first time.
That's all right.
thought
That's
that.
all right.
Right, because, yeah, we can't, like he was saying, we can't sell the
But it was-
building.
Yeah, to me, it's somewhat
Chair,
misleading.
excuse me.
Yeah.
We need to make sure everybody is speaking into the microphones.
Well, that's probably me.
No, it was me.
Was it you?
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
You're going to get me in
Later,
trouble.
Yeah.
disruptive, I'm sorry.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to note is you see in 2010,
Which page are you on? Page 3?
page 3, where you see it shows for registrations, it was 117 in 2010. And that's what me and you were talking about as far as what happened when those two programs left unexpectedly like that. You saw the drop and how that definitely affected the club as far as registration fees. Even though when you look at registration fees for boys and girls clubs, I mean, it's like 2% of the funds that you get in. And that's what I try to tell our folks, that in reality, registration fees, you're not gonna live off of that. And this is why these programs are granted. If you look at, like you had asked me about the Metro Youth Basketball League, you can see where that league brings in 26,000, but it dishes out almost 30,000. Okay, that's how nonprofits work. They just don't make money off of those, and that's why they have to get grants. You know, another example is the camp that Mr. DiPietro was talking about, the one at the Laurel Elementary School. How great this camp is. In that camp, you pay $40 for 9 weeks. That camp is fully staffed. They give them free food. They need facilities to use. You don't make money. So those organizations are supported through grants or contracts. Like, for example, what we have with Maryland National Park and Planning, that is a contract. That is not a grant. They expect us to do certain things. So this is I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out to you when you're looking over the documents, that you do not make money off of these programs. You're not in that business. That's why it's called nonprofit. Also, I had brought you some documents earlier to that I'll be getting out to folks. I'll be giving them over to the city so they can copy and get it out to you, so that you can compare boys and girls clubs that are similar to this one, and you'll look at their 990, and you'll see that they compare.
Okay, so for the revenue, the support and revenue, can you just kind of walk us through that a little bit? Because there's separate categories. So grants and contributions, where does that money primarily come from? Fundraising activities, where does those funds normally come from? So just kind of walk me through, I know you also apply for grants, so does that fall under grants and contributions?
Correct. Grants and contributions could be grants, it could be United Way, it could be a Spirit, where Laurel Youth Betterment, there's what they call a Spirit program through Safeway and all of those places where they give us money monthly, where you go out and you go purchase something there, and the club gets a portion of that. It could be individuals giving you money. Last year, the guy from the light shows that did the light shows, he gave the club over $4,300. So it could be a whole host of things when they say grants and contributions. It's spelled out in your 990. What you have here.
Include with the state, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh, go ahead.
Does that also include any money you might have gotten from the state or the county under the grants and contributions
Correct.
timeline?
Correct.
I understand it, I just want to.
Yeah, it would be community development block grant. It would be the bond bill. Whatever we received that year, that's a grant or contribution. And then I just explained registration.
Right.
We didn't have a summer camp at the club, even though we did host one. We didn't actually have that one. And you can see we received no fee, no funds from that camp. Rental income, this would be Phelps Center. This will be the people that are actually renting the facility. So that falls under the rental income. Fundraising activities, this is mainly bingo and car washes, stuff like that. Donated field use, this is the fields that we get from Prince George's County. At this point, we're not allowed to claim McCullough Field because we're in under agreement with the city for that field. So we don't claim McCullough as in-kind services. We've sat with our auditors because this would really boost up what our in-kind services is, but we're just not able to use that at this point. Also, we're not able to use the amount of time that people put in at the club. Like, for example, the stuff that I'm going to send you, where you're going to see how much it costs to staff these places. It's incredible. We're not able to count that. A club our size, you'll see in other clubs, 990s, where their staff cost is from $200,000 to $300,000. The club's not able to take that into account.
So take me back to the donated field use. I'm trying to understand that as revenue.
Whenever you get in-kind services, you can report that. Like, for example, Prince George's County gives us, Suppley? Yeah. Suppley Field. They allow us to use their schools. That's all in-kind service, because there's legislation that was passed where boys and girls clubs in Prince George's County had the first rights to those facilities. So it's in-kind
if they would
services.
have normally charged you however much for that field, you count that as income.
Correct, as in-kind services. And that really helps, because that's what grantors look at. They look at in-kind services.
So like when the city plows the lot for you, does that count as in-kind services?
When they plow the lot, sure. Anything you do counts.
Okay, so that counts on the income side of the ledger.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why you can see where if we were able to count McCullough, if we were able to count the massive amount of hours these coaches and commissioners and all these people put in, it would be huge for the club. But it's not money. It's not real money. It doesn't pay bills. But it does, again, help you with grantors, which is important because you can get, they give you grant money for that. That's why one of my big things is with the operation costs with these grantors. If you could show that that your facility is going to be open every day, even though the club's been in existence since 1965, when they see that, they're willing to give you program money.
I have a question. You said that if you could charge or count the amount of time that your coaches and whatnot spend, there's no stipulation about it's a professional service versus a volunteer service. In other words, if your CPA donates time as a CPA, I can understand that. But if a volunteer donates time, there's no guidelines. You should be able to count that service or that time. And how do you value that?
You can't.
They won't let
for
you
example,
count it.
they won't, because one of the comparisons with the fire department. Those volunteer firefighters, they can claim, $3,500 a year on their taxes or whatever it may be. These people can't claim anything on their taxes for the volunteer service. So you have no way of looking at it. Everything has to match up. So if you have no way of putting it in record, then there's no way for them to claim it.
But that's not really apples to apples compared to the use of McCullough Field, correct?
McCullough Field is not, we're in a written agreement for
Right,
McCullough
but I'm
Field.
saying disregard that agreement. If you used a field, you could use the value of that as income as an in-kind service. But you can't use the,
If the club used McCullough Field, within the bounds of the city's agreement with you, wouldn't that be in-kind services?
No, an example would be if I ran a facility. I'm using that facility for a purpose. I can't write that facility off as in-kind services. I'm renting that facility. I have an agreement with that organization. The club has an agreement
Oh, I
with
see,
the
because
city.
the city doesn't charge you for the use of the field.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. I'm slow, I'll catch up.
Can you explain to me the agreement you have with the city regarding McCullough Field?
We're not here for that today, but if you really want me to get into that.
I'm here asking a question, and I'd like to know if I
The
could get the
agreement-
information to figure out what the agreement was.
The agreement is that the club has back then, we had an executive director named Patrick Reed that sat down with the city. And the agreement is that the club has first rights to use that field over anyone versus because we gifted the field to them.
You gifted it. Did you receive any compensation from the city for that field?
Correct.
What did you receive?
We received, we received, I believe it was a new air conditioning system in the gym.
Were you given any money, though?
Yes, we were. We were given money to pay for that, to pay for the air conditioning system.
So it wasn't a pure gift, there were,
It's called a gift. If you look into the agreement, it's called a gift. The club gifted the field to the city of Laurel.
they might have
Government.
used that word, but the club was compensated for that field, right?
Correct.
Go ahead. We're trying to understand.
This is actually a pretty sensitive conversation for me, because I was one of the board members at the time that disagreed with Mr. Brown's decision to gift the field to the kids. One, because of the conditions that the club had to basically give our field to the city. The club owned the field. It was a Boys and Girls Club field. Unknown to a lot of participant/board members, for years. When we became aware that the club was, the field was actually the Boys and Girls Club field and not the city's. For many years, the city ran the field and ran programs on the field as if it was their field. At the point we found out that the field actually belonged to the Boys and Girls Club is when this gift/compensation came into play. So when Mr. Brown brought it to the board, because we were being strapped or times were hard, he made a presidential decision, and some of the board members agreed and understood. I was one of the board members that made it a point to verbally say, I disagree, and I don't think we should ever let the field be released, because I've never seen a Boys and Girls Club run a kids' facility without a field. So that's why they got into the name of a gift and the first rights of refusal for the Boys and Girls Club, to always, no matter what the conditions are, and they've worked well together as far as allowing each of them to partnership up and work together to share the field. But when you say they were compensated, by no means were they even close to being compensated for the value of the field. But it did serve the need and the purpose of the club at the time, meaning we now had an air conditioning for kids to participate in the gym when it used to get over 100 degrees inside. So the city kind of worked with us, and we appreciate it. There's no argument about that. It was funds definitely needed. But when you start saying, well, they gave you money for the field, or they gave you this, my question, being on this board, is all the years that the club had no idea they owned that field, what was given to the city in dollars that benefited our community, that actually should have been going to the club, the true owners? So if you go back to that, we may not be here today if we figure out how much money was actually given to the club. So I'm not trying to get off, or to the city, I'm not trying to get off of your point.
My question is, when did the Boys and Girls Club take possession or ownership of the building and the field?
I can answer that. It's most definitely a sore subject. That's what started me.
I understand that.
That's what started me and his problems between us. The club took over the facility in 2002. The bottom line is what happened with me is when executive director came to me about McCullough Field, I had to make a decision. And what I did, I went down to Prince George's County Central Services and sat down with them. And they told me, indeed, the field belongs to the Laurel Boys and Girls Club. It was surplus to the club. And they gave me all the documents at that time.
But that happened at the time when
Right.
the club took over the...
Exactly, because what the lady said to me, she said, Mr. Brown, it's common sense. Where do you know that there's a school that doesn't have a field? I said, okay. But I mean, he asked me, so I just want to clear it up, because this, this has been a sore subject with me and the board of directors, because it came down to a 4-4 vote, and at that point, the president has the deciding vote, and I decided that we should gift the field to the city. And the reason why I did that is because the club came under tremendous pressure. We had folks gang up on the club at that time. We were receiving monies from nobody. And I tried to explain that to the board, that we can't continue like this or we will be closed. You won't have anything. Their whole thing was, you just gave them the field. Now, what do they want next? Our building. So that's been the whole situation with them. The club couldn't sell the field to the city. That's why you got the word gift, because in order for the in the agreement, when the club gives either the building or the field up, it has to give it back to the county. So that's where all of this came in with the wording of gift. But indeed, the field belonged to the club,
Okay,
and I'll admit that to this day.
Is there an agreement written that explains all of this?
There's an agreement that is written between the city and the club concerning the field, and the wording is there, gift.
Is there any possibility we could look at that?
Yep, we'll get it for you next time.
Okay.
Exactly, it's public record.
Do you have a copy of the agreement where Mrs. McCullough gave the field to whoever she gave it
Ms.
to?
McCullough gave the field to the county.
To the county?
Right,
And then the county gave it to the Boys and Girls Club?
right, the county, yes, I have it's online. The documents are online. They made, it was posted online at the club site, just like our minutes and everything else. All the information is there.
And Mr. Wilson, I'm sure you'll recall that as council members, we declined to take the field
Yeah.
that was initially offered to the city.
I just want to make sure that we understand the dates of when
Right.
certain things happen.
2002.
Right. So initially that was offered to, the city had the right of first refusal, and then it went to the club. And I think that that's part of the spirit of cooperation that Mr. Brown evinces today with, in terms of gift, and in terms of working with the city in that kind of partnership, and for all of the children. Because in Ms. McCullough's deed over to the county, it said in the language it was for the use of the children of Laurel. Is that? I'm
That's
paraphrasing,
correct.
But that's about right?
That's correct.
Right. So that's part of the whole spirit of Ms.
Okay,
McCullough's
I'm sorry
very
I
generous
took us
gift.
down that rat hole, but I think it was important. Anything else, Mr. Frederick?
I see on this tax return, there's a mortgage on that building.
Correct.
Who was that mortgage with?
PNC Bank, then Citizens Bank,
Okay. And how long has there been a mortgage on that building?
since 2005, I believe. There's also a bus loan on there. There's several things with PNC.
But I thought that you received it for $1 from the county as surplus property.
Correct.
Is that correct? So why would there be a mortgage?
To pay your bills. Well, how does anybody get a mortgage?
You usually get a mortgage to to buy the property.
No, we use that. We use the building to get money
Right.
to pay bills.
Leverage the assets, like any organization, leverage the assets that you have to.
According to this, the mortgage now is like 220, is that correct?
No, that's not correct. It's I think you have the documents there. I want to say we've been paying it since 2009, I believe.
It's in the, I'll tell you, wait a minute.
Yeah, it should be in the latest 990.
Okay, it says on page 11, this is on the one dated 12/21/2010. It says that the mortgage, or the secured mortgages at the end of the year was 214,000.
Okay, then that's what it is.
23.
That includes the bus loan too, or just the, is that all?
I would say, yeah, that probably includes the bus loan.
Do you recall the initial amount of that mortgage?
I want to say it was for like 180 or 190.
Well, it was for 180 or 190. How did it get to 214?
If you add the bus loan and whatever else on it, because we've not done anything else with that loan.
So is this like a home equity or like a line of credit?
No, it's a mortgage.
It's a chattel mortgage on the property.
Right, we're paying what, 6.3% or
Right.
something
We had
like
an
that
opportunity
on
to
it.
refinance it, and we're working towards that.
May I ask, Mr. Brown, what is the administrative policy or the board? How do you all decide to take an asset like that and put a mortgage on it? I mean, what's the procedure that's followed?
What we do is we
who does it?
we go through a vote for it, and we either approve it or disapprove it.
The board.
The board does.
Just very quickly on the mortgage, I take it what year was that secured in?
I want to say it was either 2009 or 2010.
Okay.
It was during the period when they cut our funds off.
And just briefly, is that money been used up and you're paying it off like you would a loan, or is this something you have some of it set off to the side to use again?
No, we're paying it off.
So you've used it all?
Here it
We didn't even
says,
use it. We make payments on it. $1,923 a month.
If you borrowed a certain amount in 2009, and now you're paying it off, and that money has been used pretty much for the operation up to this point.
it looks like to me there was a mortgage on it back in 2007.
Okay, then that's when we got the loan in, 2007.
Okay.
255.
The funds have been expended from that mortgage to cover the operating expenses during a shortfall. Before I was on the board, but I'm assuming that's correct, right, Mr. Brown?
Correct.
Okay, so it's an expense. for
Yeah,
the
to
year.
pay bills and things like
Keep the
that.
lights on.
Keep the doors
Does that
open.
show up under the expenses here? On the next line on page 3?
For which?
Back to the summary on page 3, the one that dated November 30th, 2011.
Okay.
If the loan came out in 2007, you would have to look at 2007 and see what we paid in 2007.
If you look at 2010 and 2011, you have your revenue, then you have your expenses and support. Under the expenses for this year would include that $1,000 or, excuse me, whatever you're paying on that mortgage as part of your expenses in that year.
That would come probably most likely under occupancy
Okay.
or,
Occupancy?
Okay,
yes,
excuse me, it appears
general
that
operating, one of them.
mortgage was taken out in 2005
Oh, yeah.
for $243,000, it looks like.
And that was when I first took over as president, so.
I have a question. You show that you have registrants, the registration fees, I guess for those are for the different athletic events. Say, for example, in 2011 of $70,000. And then sports activities is listed as an expense of $177,000. What does the sports activities cover? So registration fees don't cover the cost of the actual sports programs?
No,
is
and that's
that?
what I was
Just
trying to
clarify that
explain
for
to
me.
you. I was trying to explain to you earlier, is that registration fees would never cover what you're going to actually expend for sports activities, because you don't bring in enough money to do that. Like, for example, referees cost almost $30,000.
So you can't adjust, just thinking in my business, we wouldn't incur an expense if we don't have the money to cover it. So has there been any thought to adjust those fees to be
No,
more comparable to be able to pay some of that stuff?
We can't, our participants or members just can't afford to pay anything higher than what we're charging already. And that's why you get grants. That's why you get grant money to play your programs. It's easy to get program money, but they're not going to give you program money if they can't see that you can't take care of your operations. If they see that you could take care of your operations, for example, they see that you got like a city government backing you, or you have some type of backing, like back in 1994 when they had the casinos. If you could show that you have this type of backing, then program money is easy to get. You only got to look around the country. Like, for example, that's why I wanted to get those copies out to you, comparing the other clubs to us, where one of the clubs I'm going to compare shows that they pay $5 for registration fee. And then you will see where their program for their program, it's this amount of money, and then you versus what the registration is, it's the same thing. This is the way that these nonprofits operate.
Just following up on that, if I could. So you've told me before, and I think I'm getting it, that there's really three kind of pots of money in the way of looking at this. One is the operating money.
Correct.
And just if you could just cartoon it for a minute, can you describe the kinds of expenses that are in the operating?
Operating money is your utilities, your maintenance,
Maintenance, debt service?
professional services,
I'm talking about debt service for your mortgage.
your mortgage, professional services like your audits, your outside accountants,
All your administrative fees.
your administrative fees,
What's in program?
and program referees, uniforms, equipment, tournaments that they go to. You just go on and on.
Okay, so you're saying, and you've told me this in the past, that you can go and apply for a grant for program money, but you got to be able to demonstrate that you've got a viable business.
You have to demonstrate that you,
Giving money for a program that is viable.
even though you've been around since 1965,
Is it 54 or 65?
65, 54 they were called the Boys Club or whatever, some type of boys club.
Incorporated in 65?
It's 65 as a Boys and Girls Club. Okay, which was they were fortunate they did it then, because years later they would have had to change their name. But it comes down to when, like for example, the summer camp program. The kids that participated in that were participating in that program that we were paying, they get paid under program money. Versus our community, the person that does our maintenance at the club, that's operation money. So it just goes on and
Is
on.
there a third kind of bucket of money for building, investment? What do you call that?
That's called capital money. And the club has had really no problem getting capital money. The problem that they have is what they call matching. For example, we were given $73,000 by the Community Development Block Grant folks in September. They called us and they said, hey, Levitt, we got $73,000 we can give you. However, it needs to be expended within a month. Okay, so in other words, we got to spend the money and then they reimburse it to us. We just don't have $73,000 sitting in the bank. So the club lost that $73,000. And this is the type of stuff that should never happen. You know, there should be some fund somewhere that they should be able to tap. I tried everyone. I went to the city. They just didn't have enough time. Went to the banks. You know, had Citizen been in place, we would have gotten a loan, because Citizen has traditionally helped the club. So we just could not come up with those type of funds, but we lost that. We get bond bills. So the club is in a position to get these grants because what the club has shown is that they're accountable to those grants, to the bond bill and to the Community Development Block Grant. They just don't give those grants to anybody. The Community Development Block Grant is given through Prince George's County, but it is a federal grant. So we're able to get those. We just got to have the money to be able to get the work done, get reimbursed, and go from there. So,
Gotcha.
but there is three. You mentioned there's capital, there's program, and there's operating.
Just real quick, just for me, now, for 2010 and 2011, I'm still using the summary sheet we have on page 3. The total support and revenue, is that a good realistic number of all the monies you get in for your income? That includes operations and programs?
Yeah, that's correct. This is an independent audit.
Bottom, if I look at the net of your 76,000 negative, what y'all spent in 2011 versus what you brought in.
Correct.
So those are good numbers to work from.
Right, but you gotta take into account that you see depreciation in there of 67,000 $972, they count depreciation.
So that's really off the building and not off
Right.
the income
So,
that you
so
gained.
grantors, and see, me, I'm a grant writer. I always look at everything from a grant writing thing.
Okay.
Grantors don't look at that. They give us the benefit of the doubt.
But that just helps me understand where the money, like you had a big loss in from 2010 to 2011, and then I can go look at the details to find out why.
Right. My biggest thing for me is it comes down to what happened in 2010 with the registration thing. That's huge as far as I'm concerned. Again, it comes back to what we've discussed. It's a duplication of programs in our city. And this is what really affected the club. Those are real dollars right there, okay, versus the depreciation. That's not real. And then you look at the summer camp where we didn't have the program money to fund a camp that employed over 32 children and kids, and then it had an additional 30 kids that were in what we call our counselor and training program, which is an excellent program. It actually encouraged kids to get good grades in school because basically we paid them by how well their wage per hour was actually given to them by how well they did in school. So these are excellent programs that we just got to have in this community. And then of course we were providing over 100 families with affordable with an affordable camp. Again, we waived them if they didn't have the funds, or we reduced the fees. These are type of programs that you just can't do without in a community. You can see where the minus is over there, 56, 112.
So, I don't know if I'm getting off topic a little bit because I'm trying to really make a connection between income and expenses. And I was looking at, probably getting a little ahead of myself, when we first got these packaged, the various contracts that you have with some of the organizations. And it looks like some pay, some don't pay.
Correct.
Some have in-kind type services. So if there's a shortage, I guess the question that comes to mind, if there's a shortages to cover expenses, why would not have more standard agreements where they're actually paying you compensation?
The reason for that is if you look at those type of organizations, like for example, dance, some of the after-school stuff, in reality, they are compensating us because they're providing the staff to run those programs. And that's why I say when you compare the club to other clubs, we don't pay staff like that. So to provide that product to our people in the community, we bring those group-ins. We do what our mission says. We partner with those groups, and what those groups do is they put that program in the club, and it's made available to our participants. So in reality, we're saving thousands of dollars by not paying for staff for those positions to run those programs at the club.
Thank you.
And so that's why we pick those type of organizations. We look at them and see what they offer. Just for example, like we're getting ready to bring a group in now that provides clothing to disadvantaged children. And what they want is space from the club. So they come in, we do a MOU. Why would we charge them for space in the club when they're providing free clothes to disadvantaged kids in our community? It's a win-win situation.
Mr. Brown, those, not the clothing, but the dance classes you said, my question is, do they charge the kids, or are they a nonprofit and do this at no cost?
No, they charge the kids. They charge them.
You give them the space to provide the services for the kids.
Correct.
But they make the money off the kids in order to run the program.
Correct. But what they do is they go through us as far as how much they're going to charge a kid. Like, for example, if a kid comes to us and they say that, hey, we can't afford whatever it may be, we negotiate that fee with that organization.
I see. My other question is, do you have an attorney that vets your contracts, or are they just done through the board?
We have Crawford and Associates. We have an attorney.
And you pay him to do these, or he does
No,
them pro bono?
no, her.
Her.
Right.
They do them pro
Pro
bono?
bono.
Pro bono?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brown, I got,
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Wilson.
I just got a, Mr. Shepard couldn't be here until later, but he texted me a question for you. I'd like to ask, he says, what's the bus used for? The bus that you have the loan?
The bus is used for trips. Like, for example, we're getting ready to go to Kutztown University in June. We're getting ready to take 45 kids to Kutztown. So it's used for trips.
Okay, and it is in service.
Yes, right now it's down in Odyssey, Schenkel. They're putting on it right now, one of those heater things where you could plug it in, and then they're getting rid of the air starter. So when we started, the whole neighborhood would hear us start it. Now it's going to be an electrical start because the bus came from Chicago. Actually, our executive director is the person that brought that
Thank
bus
you.
to the club.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon me. Just to clarify, Mr. Brown, the vast majority, if not all of the groups that come in and use the facility are 501c3s.
That's correct.
Right. So it's not as if it's, Mike's dance studio, which would be something, but, teaching kids and then making a profit off of that. The groups that come in are nonprofits, as it's a community center, community space in actuality, in my view.
So-
My viewpoint of it.
Yeah, and what we also do is, we bring in groups. We do what they call capacity training, and what we do is they come in and they're new groups, maybe to the city or wherever it may be. They come into the club, they build up their capacity, and then they move on. Ladies of what they call Ladies of Laurel, whatever they're called, lovely ladies of Laurel. Those are perfect examples of groups that's come. We give them the facility, they build up, and they move on.
Like an incubator of sorts.
Correct.
So I noticed that, go ahead, Mr. Beach.
Need the mic.
You got to turn it on.
And I'm not. I'm trying to understand this. So that's an incubator group, but the groups that here last week were not incubator groups? They're just people
No.
that left the Boys and Girls Club?
No, they're not incubator groups. Those are folks that were in the club that decided for one reason or another that they wanted to spin out on their own.
Right.
No, that's a club program. They came in under a club program.
Right.
Big difference. Besides the Laurel Hurricanes and the Laurel Little League, we actually partnered with those groups. Okay, those are what we can call incubators. Where the city contacted us and said, "Hey, listen here, we got this group called the Laurel Hurricanes. Would it be okay if they use Cypress Field?" And I wrote them back a letter and told them, without a doubt, we have no problems with them. They offer something totally different than the club do. The club offers unlimited weight. They offer what is it called?
Weighted.
Pop Warner.
Yeah.
Is what they,
Right.
I had to refer to the athletic director. It looks like I know more than him.
No.
Yeah, it's called Pop Warner. So it's totally two different. It's not a duplication of what we already have here.
Why would the city ask you if it's okay to use Cypress Field?
Because the city of Laurel and the Laurel Boys and Girls Club have what they call an unwritten agreement, where the Laurel Boys and Girls Club handles the youth programs in the city, and the city does the adults programs.
I think that's commendable that the city's willing to work with the club on
No, I do,
a
but
multi-facility, so of course
and
that's-
that-
I don't believe the city is obligated to ask anybody for
It's not
permission.
obligated.
Well, I
Speaks
mean,
well to the city.
it's not
Speaks
being
well
an
to the city that they
obligation.
do
I
it.
think it's a matter of professionalism. I mean, they don't want to duplicate what we have. At least I would hope they wouldn't want to duplicate that's already there.
That reflects well on the city and its administration.
So what's the difference between your program and their football program?
They're what they call Pop Warner.
Well, I
Mr. Russo
understand.
can
Pop
explain it
Warner's
to
been
you.
around since the beginning of time, but
Well, the difference is basically the league. We operate out of Prince George's County competition. Pop Warner can play teams in Baltimore, Virginia. That's why
Right.
she was saying we don't compete in recruiting their kids. They're a bigger branch that travel to the Nationals, Pop Warner Nationals. They may have to go to Jersey. They
Right.
may have to travel to Chicago. We don't do that. That's the difference. The difference is we are in-house, we stay in-house, and for the most part, up until the last couple of years, we've actually sent a few teams down to Florida for the national, but not national Pop Warner, just national competition as a whole. Some parents like to travel. Some parents like to see their kids go, all over the United States and compete. With us, we focus more so on our 4 little groups of Laurel and compete in Prince George's County.
In organizational wise, we're just totally different. Boys and Girls Clubs were formed to supplement schools. That's what they were formed for. So in other words, when your kid got out of school, they were able to go down to their local club and use computers or whatever it may be. If your kid couldn't make a basketball team or whatever it may be at that school, they would come down to your local club and participate in those programs. They're just totally different entities. That program is a single program that offers single things. So it's totally different. And then we're Boys and Girls Club are more outreach as far as in their communities.
I have a question. To get back on the financial situation. I know, because I've been with this club a lot of years, that back when we had the casinos and things of that nature being operated as far as fundraising, we never had any financial issues, any financial problems during that time. When the casino shut down, the club, for whatever reason, went in a totally different direction. I don't have the figures as far as how much the casinos brought in. I don't have the figures as to where the money went to, but I do know that when the casinos evaporated and all of those individuals that was running those casinos evaporated along with the money, how it affects you during this time, because I hear so much when I talk about being a volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club that we had millions of dollars and all of a sudden we have no money, and it reflects on the current members in the public's eye, and we had nothing to do with any of that time. Can you explain to me how the formation of the two has come to now where you have to come to other groups to ask for funding, where before we were self-sufficient? We had plenty of money and everybody had everything. When I came in as the athletic director years ago, I found boxes and boxes of equipment that were paid for through the casinos that we didn't even know we had, that was stored up, and we didn't even know we had that type of stuff. Now, since then, we've expended all of those extra material and extra equipment, but it puts a cloud, I know, over my head when I'm asked those questions and I don't have the answers, and maybe you do and can share it with me.
In 1994 is when the casinos ended. At that time, I did sit down with one of the presidents, Bob, we call him Bingo Bob, and he explained to me the whole situation with the bingo. Difference is it's obvious they had more money than we did. Their budget was like $1.2 million. So they were able to do a lot. My only question when I got there in 2004 was what happened with the building? And that's been my biggest thing, is what I saw in 2004. And like I said, being a firefighter, and inspector, and, running through the games, that's been my biggest issue with all of this, is nobody cared about that. What type of operations that was going on then, like he mentioned, equipment was everywhere. It's just there was no accountability at the club. And now there is accountability at the club. We have things in place, and if you don't want to go by those rules, you have people leaving, and it takes time for us to get around to some of those things that are going on there. But my whole biggest thing is that they're being supported, and given an opportunity to go out and leave a club, and that's the biggest issue that I have with what's going on here. But to answer his question, we have no records from no tax papers, no nothing. All I can do is go by with hearsay. In 1994, they had over 200,000 dollars in the bank when that president left, and in 2004 when I got there, they didn't have any money in the bank. I have no idea what bank they were using or any of that. There is just absolutely no documentation for that.
I do have one other question on some of the finances. I noticed that the city rebates property tax to you.
Yes.
Why would a 501(c) be charged property tax?
The Laurel Boys and Girls Club, when I got there in 2004, I was shocked that they were actually paying taxes. There is no Boys and Girls Club in this country that pays taxes. So what I did, I wrote letters, and at some point, the city finally agreed on their end to not levy taxes against the club, and I commend them for that. It took me a lot. It took a lot of work for me to do that, but
it's a county program, so the county levies property taxes on it.
correct.
Why? They don't levy you're a 501(c). They don't levy property taxes on any other 501(c)s, right?
That's not true. They were. There was another club in Lanham that was paying taxes. They went through, because I learned from them what I need to do next. What they did, they went through legislation, where now you have to go through legislation, and what that will do, that will now stop us from paying county taxes as well, because we're paying county taxes as we speak. So once we get this before the legislators, they'll put in that, okay, clubs shouldn't be paying county taxes as well.
There are taxes paid by 501(c)(3)s across the country.
But I'm talking about Boys and Girls Clubs. I don't care about
Boys and Girls Club.
Oh.
It's not regulated by being a Boys and Girls Club. It's called unrelated income. You have a core mission, you raise money to do your core mission. If you get revenue that you produce from another avenue, which does not fit the IRS's category of what you're supposed to have, then it's taxable income.
But we're not taxed by the IRS.
Excuse me?
We're not taxed by the IRS. He
No,
asked
but
me
the
about.
county then has, you put products in your property that relates to that unrelated income, can be a personal property tax against your property.
So if I would put a for-profit entity like a school on that property, is that what encumbers the property tax?
It can be attributable to that. I
But
assume that's what it is.
no, what it is, I think
you,
he's going.
you all are aware that you have your property's up for tax sale in Prince George County right now,
Correct.
for sale on the public block Monday.
Yes, we are aware that we owe what, $3,000 as far as our tax on the club.
I can share with you the statement as of today. And give me a second, Mr. Chairman, I'll find it.
And while you're looking, write us a check.
This is notice for the tax sale commencing on Monday the 9th.
I have a question while Mr. DiPietro's looking for that page. I was looking through your tax documents, and I noticed you mentioned Bingo Bob Gallen, who I know runs the bingo program. As an example, I've noticed for out of the last 4 years, there's only 1 year it's made a profit. Do you all as a board ever sit and reevaluate your programs? I mean, does it bring in other revenue besides the gaming and the expenses?
We did look at bingo. We have Eileen here. We did take a look at bingo, but what we looked at, because the executive director came to me, Patrick Reed, and informed me about what was going on with bingo. But bingo has a history at the club. It has a history.
I understand that. I don't
Right.
care about what's going on or anything. I'm saying black and white. It's losing money.
Right.
Every year it's losing money except for one out of the last four. So if you're in financial straits, why are you continuing a program? I mean, football has history, baseball has history. Why would you continue a program that loses money?
Well, that'd be the same thing as what you just mentioned, those other programs that are losing money. I come back to Bingo has a history. We did sit down with Bingo, and they gave some ideas, and they put those ideas in place, and now they're making money.
Now they're making money,
Right.
so this year will show a profit.
Exactly. So it came down. You asked me what our decision was. Our decision was that Bingo has a history at the club, and we just didn't want to just say, okay, no more Bingo. So we did meet with Bingo, and they came up with some ideas to continue the program. But I tell you, like I told them, I don't want to be the president that gets rid of Bingo at the club. Maybe the next one will, but I don't.
It's a fair question, and to be fair, but then also to be fair to Bingo, they did come back with, they are making money now, and they did come back with a revamped plan, so to be fair to them, they're,
I know we're skipping all around, and it's probably going to take me till next week to go through all of this information and compile some additional questions I may have. But one of the questions I have, I see on page 9, note 3, there was a vendor settlement. You were named in a lawsuit, but filed by a vendor. Can you explain that? You paid $22,500 June 2012.
Oh, okay, sure. I don't even have to look at that one. That was, again, that came back down to dealing with the commissioner for football. What happened was the commissioner, what they did, we have a procedure. There's a thing called a purchase order request. And also, we have in our rules where you have to use a club-approved vendor. Well, this vendor and this commissioner didn't go by any of those rules. So what they did was they ordered $23,000. Actually, it was $30-something thousand worth of jerseys, and they ordered them using a purchase order request. So what happened was, it got to us in like October or November, and that was after football had already started and they were playing. And we received a letter from this company saying that we owed them money. It was the first time we had ever heard from them. So at that point, of course, we denied it because they sent letters to Prince George's County Boys and Girls Club, Boys and Girls Club of America, all sorts of folks. And we finally determined that we were the ones that they were talking about. At that point, we tried to rectify it. It took about, I want to say, almost a year and a half. And then finally, we went before a judge. And what the judge basically said that, hey, your kids wore the uniform. You're going to have to pay something. So what they did, the club had to settle for whatever that amount was. We did talk to our auditors about it because you see it right there. We asked them, what could we have done? And there's absolutely nothing that you could have done. In my opinion, I thought that company should have contacted leadership in order to make a big purchase like that. I know I would have never put together that amount of a product expecting that type of payment.
So the company did it on spec. In other words, they didn't have a signed PO from a club officer.
Right, they did it on what they call a purchase order request form.
So that's what was given to the vendor.
Right.
The material came in, was distributed to the players.
Right.
And at that point is when you guys said you weren't going to pay because it didn't go through your normal process.
No, we didn't say that. What happened was we had to investigate, make sure it was us at first, because we had no idea. Like I said, football season had already started. Had it not started, then we could have just sent the uniforms back. But it had already been a process.
Yeah, but
So-
you ordered them. I mean, somebody ordered them.
Exactly.
The commissioner ordered.
The commissioner ordered them.
So when you got them, clearly you would know that somebody ordered them.
What do you mean when you got them?
When that
The commission, right.
commissioner was out of process.
Players put on the new jerseys. I mean, I would have thought that somebody would have said, wait a minute, where did these come from?
Actually, that's up my alley. I did, in fact, do just that. Because I never received any bill, normally, when I order equipment, I have to pay half up front before they even start on the orders. I have to pay the balance before I even purchase or receive one item. That never took place. At the time that I saw the uniforms at the start of the season, I did confront the commissioner and asked him how they came to get all of these uniforms. They said the uniforms were paid for by a volunteer, by a donation, an outside organization that paid for the uniforms, went through the company, the whole nine. It didn't draw a flag to me because I know, well, I thought, no company would give up $40,000 worth of material with nothing up front, with no approvals by anyone on the board or anything else. I didn't have a problem with that. If your dealership was to come and I'm the basketball commissioner as well, come to me with uniforms and say, Mr. Rousseau, I'm donating these to your basketball program, no fees, no anything, enjoy. I would shake your hand and make a big hoopla in the papers or whatever, but that would be the end of it. Now, later, if Nightmare Graphics, for instance, or Football America came to me and said, the basketball uniforms you just received and played in, Frederick did not pay any of those. He ordered them for the Boys and Girls Club, but he didn't pay for them. That's when we took Frederick to court and said, I did not sign any documentation, I did not approve anything, and how did we even get to this point? You know, I was informed that it had been paid for. I've never seen a business give $40,000 worth of equipment with no funds up front, no good faith, anything. And their bottom line was, because your kids used the uniforms, you know, and that kind of brought up a whole lot of flags in a whole lot of places where we had to readjust, and we informed all of our vendors that everything must go through me, and I must take it to the board to get approved. So I can't even approve anything. But it was a $22,000 lesson, and we will be using those uniforms for the next 22 years because of that mistake. But it goes back to, and I'm not trying to bring it up in a negative aspect, to the soccer program that we entertained last week, where Mrs. DiPietro was saying groups can leave. There's no binding. There's nothing that can say any group can't leave. Well, that soccer program actually left because of something I put in place. When it came to my attention that was another commissioner that was doing things without our knowledge. A set of uniforms came to the office that weren't the Boys and Girls Club. I tried to send them back. It didn't have our label, it didn't have our name. I had no purchase order that I signed and took to the board, only to find out when I contacted the vendor and said, you made a mistake. They said, no, we've been dealing with you guys for years. And I said, no, you've never dealt with me. Their answer was, and they gave me the commissioner's name, Mr. Haversack, and said that he's been using your nonprofit ID, and we've been giving him breaks and deals on it. It happened to be an off-season program that he runs. That's not through the Boys and Girls Club, but because they had been dealing with him during season, he just kept making orders, but would just use our base.
But he paid for that.
He did, but the equipment went to his home instead of the Boys and Girls Club. So I was never even aware of it for years, that it was taking place. He paid for everything. The club never owed anything. But when you come to these type of things, these audits, if that would have been in here, then you all would have been looking at us as being deceptive. And
Well, it comes to your attention when somebody makes, and I'm in a business, I know what goes on. I mean,
I'm-
you know what you got. And if you don't know what you got, then you're not on top of it.
That's not true,
That's
because
not
you gotta,
true.
In my business, I know what I got.
Well, I guarantee you, you may be, yeah, you may
I
be,
know what my parts inventory is, I know what I order, when I order it, and I know what I pay for.
okay, and I commend you for that.
I don't have, I mean, I'm
I've
just saying
seen,
that I know people do things they shouldn't do. And this guy obviously made a deal with somebody that he shouldn't have made a deal with because he wasn't authorized.
I mean, you guys could have gone after a judgment on
Right,
him.
exactly. And the
have
thing is
chose not to do it, but you
to answer that, I asked our auditors, which is a reputable firm, and they told me that there was nothing that we could have done to prevent that. Absolutely nothing that we could have done to prevent that. Plus, you got to remember, the Laurel Boys and Girls Club is not a small club. It's huge. It is huge. And if kids are up there with new uniforms on, like, for example, if I went to a football game, I'd have never known the difference. Never. That they had new uniforms on. To me, I've just been watching a football game. That wouldn't even came across my mind that you have a commissioner ordering uniforms. Now, in his defense, one of the reasons why I petitioned the board not to go after him was correct. It would have cost us money, but they were talking about taking the guy's retirement. And on top of that, he didn't do that for himself. He did that for those kids. My only problem is that those uniforms weren't worth $30-something thousand. That's what I looked at, that we could have gotten them a lot cheaper. We traditionally play, what, $7,000 or $8,000 for uniforms. So you're absolutely right. There's some type of deal that was probably going on there. But
Repeat that. You pay normally $7,000 or $8,000 for the same amount of uniforms that you were being charged $30,000 for?
Exactly. And that was my thing to the judge, is that very fact. And that's why it was lowered to $22,000. Now, he looked at it as if they had some fault in this because they didn't go through the process. Their argument was that.
Jeez.
Let's be careful we're not relitigating this without the defendants here. Okay?
Right.
I don't want to get the city in trouble.
Their thing. Well, this is the club. Their thing is that that we're a boys and girls club. You're reputable. That was their defense
Mr.
as
Brown,
to why they did it.
I commend that you didn't want to go after the man for his retirement. But obviously, when he told the athletic director that someone had given them the uniforms and made that donation, he obviously wasn't being wholeheartedly open about it. And then on another note, in my business, which is a nonprofit, if somebody gives me a donation for $30,000, my first question is, who the heck was it? Because I want to make sure that my leadership calls him up and says, thank you very much.
But what happened?
And it went on, you said, for a couple months until you started getting the bill.
What happened was he contacted an organization that had promised him that they were going to fund those uniforms. And that organization didn't come through for him. I investigated it, and they didn't come through for him. And that's why the bill was there. It wasn't like somebody wrote him a check. No one, I don't think any company would write personally him a check. It would come to the club. So, no, the situation was that they had told him that they were going to give him, that they were going to help him, and they end up not doing it.
We good with all this? Everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. DiPietro, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
No, yeah, the listing, the most recent listing came out today, and it does have the Laurel Boys and Girls Club listed for a tax in the arrears on the 107 Montgomery Street property at $24,064.23.
That's not, we don't pay $24,000, whatever that number is. Actually, what happens is I have to write a letter to them every year. Probably what's included in that is the city tax and all these other taxes. But once I write that letter to them, they look at that letter. I think we pay something like $7,000 a year in taxes. So that figure is incorrect, or they didn't receive the letter that I wrote to them. We went through this before.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's posted, and the sale starts Monday for what it's worth, so I'd call them tomorrow.
You trying to buy it?
Huh?
Is that why you called? You trying to?
But look, there's guys that make a living doing all of this across the United States. This
Right.
is the easiest money in the world.
Well, you can't sell the club. You can't. It can't happen. But I'm thanks for that information.
Well,
I will be
It's not
contacted.
worthless to buy it.
No, it's worth 2.1 million. It's not worth.
You buy this, and you guys immediately start paying interest on $24,000 at 18%, and it's pretty fast.
Right, it's not as if they're, we're 97%.
Well,
Don't you
Mike,
view
you're
it as
sitting
an
in, you're
embarrassment?
sitting in the Laurel.
No,
Junior
ma'am,
High
I don't. No, I don't.
Next door is the O.W. Fair Elementary. These are both
Because
very
in my
highly
opinion,
profitable
clubs shouldn't be paying taxes. So
school
no,
buildings.
I don't view this as.
So yeah, there
embarrassing.
are people out there that would snatch it and try to buy it.
Okay, let's just keep it to one conversation. Okay, so, we've been through this packet. We're getting a little late on time. What I'd like to do is at least introduce what these other packets are so that when folks take it home to do their homework, they know what they've got. So I don't know how easy, how you want to go through this, but.
It's
we went to
it's
the
numbered. Everything's numbered. It's right there for you.
Okay,
Okay, so everything.
so
is
everything's tied to this key.
numbered. Correct.
Everything's tied to this key.
I think the city did a good job with that. I probably would have gave you guys folders though. You know what I mean?
We're in a austere fiscal times. I think we did pretty good just getting this stuff
Oh
reproduced.
yeah, because they just got it Friday.
Okay, so why don't everybody take a minute and look at this so that you guys, if there's any questions on at least what we've got, any of it. Just make sure, so number one is all written contracts. Number two is participants, nonprofits, churches, where no fee is paid. Number three is net amounts paid to the club for the sporting programs. Number four is all of the income sources, year-to-date and last year.
It's not all of them.
It's not all of them?
No, because I'm waiting on the person that currently does the grants. They're gonna send that to me, and I'll send it to you.
Okay. So that's a spreadsheet with who's paying for what. Number six. So there's a separate nonprofit basketball program run out of the club. Remind me again?
That's called the Metro Youth Basketball League, and then there's another league ran out of there called the Lady something, Lady Stars.
And they're separate 501(c)(3)s that take advantage of the club?
The club actually runs the Metro Youth Basketball League. The Lady Stars, they run the league for us because we take a break during that time. But there's no basketball in the city during that time, so we have them run that league during that fall period
Okay.
because we take a break. Yeah, it's girls and boys, but mostly girls.
That group, they support most of the girls' activities,
Okay.
and it's hard
Other
for
things
us.
besides basketball?
Well, no, it's basketball, but the Lady Stars, and I think Miss Holland may be aware of them. They cater to the girls, the competitive girls leagues, and in our Boys and Girls Club, we do all co-ed because we don't have enough girls to run a girls league. So they actually partnership up with us to offer a girls league so that the girls during the summer can be all they can be.
I'm sorry
Go
to be a
ahead.
pain, but I have a question on the packet 6 about the nonprofit basketball. On your P&L, you have a bank credit of $40,000. What does that
Of
refer
what?
to? It says bank credit, account number 7100. It says bank credit $40,002.75, and then account 7101 is a bank rebate of $72.25, and then it says the total bank credit is $40,075.
I have no idea what that is. All I do is get from them to print what you want, and they print it, and there it is.
Can you look into that, Mr. Brown?
'Cause
I
it's-
can, but
I mean,
there's
it's-
some of
there's
There's a
those.
written,
Yeah,
why don't
'cause
we
the-
do it this way? Y'all send me any of the, as you go through this, send me questions via email, And then I'll funnel these to Mr. Brown, and then that way we have a record, and he doesn't have to keep notes up there, and we'll try to get,
Also, I wanted to give these to the city.
yeah,
To have
these are,
them get this out to you, because what this is 990s and annual report from clubs similar to the Boys and Girls
Okay.
Club. And you'll see where
so if
their
you can give
stuff
that
is
to
similar to ours.
Miss Carmen over there, and
Okay.
I'm sure she'll be happy to put it in our package.
So, and I'm sorry, just one quick question. In number 6, the folder that contains the separate non-basketball program, so this is just, this profit P and L is just on the Laurel Youth Betterment in folder 6? Because I don't know that is correct, because it mentions other stuff like wrestling and,
Okay, what I did was I highlighted. I highlighted Metro Youth Basketball League in there. See it at the bottom?
no. Can you show?
Yeah, come on.
Please. Approach the bench, oh.
Oh, we don't have, that didn't make it into the,
Oh, it's not right.
so 4930s,
What they've done is they've put,
so 4930,
they've mixed it up.
okay.
They've lined it up.
So the first page of that stack of stuff is Metro Youth Basketball.
How do I make that though?
Says page 1 of 4, right.
But that's.
And then if you go to the,
It could be.
I think they probably should have split them out.
Not showing it highlighted.
yeah, the highlights, that's all. So 60 to 70
And then-
through the total.
Which is
And then what else? Is that it?
That should be right. right.
well. When they print these.
Yeah, it's just the yellow doesn't reproduce.
That makes it,
Make sense?
yeah.
All right, so, any questions you guys, you go through this, send them to me, get them to club. And hopefully we'll have time the next session. Is there any other, so let me ask a couple of questions to kind of seed this, we have a few minutes. You mentioned that the operating expenses are, that bucket of money is the toughest one for you. So give me just a rough idea of how much that is per year? Is it in one of these documents what the operating, it may be broken out that way, so that's the reason I'm asking the question funny. What are your operating?
Say a rough estimate is 110,000. Yeah, see, I'm not counting that. I'm just, he wants to know what's current, right?
Just
You want to know what the current operating,
However you choose to want to talk about it.
Right, the
So
current-
you've reduced staff in this
Right,
fiscal time.
correct. So the current is about 110,000. Because you would count just the one employee, and then you would count the UTs, the bank loans, count that would be about it. Phone bill,
Employees, trade of employees.
pass,
Taxes,
yeah,
debt service on loan,
insurance.
insurance. That was another question that came up. What level of insurance does the club have to carry?
The club has to carry commercial liability, and we're a member of Prince George. That's one of the benefits of being a member of Prince George's Boys and Girls Clubs. We had actual liability through them, and then we also do a separate thing on our because we have an employee, and we protect the board. So we do something separate on our own, which is about $2,500 for that 50 now went up. And any of the organizations that use the facility, they have to provide.
So get insurance.
Yeah.
Just so that I am clear, the intent on this page 3 includes the 110 operations, so that whole amount of the expenses the 408.
To that nine,
The 90,
that audit.
Yeah, whatever you the
Okay, so-
990 is an independent. Those that's what you see there is that they go through everything.
I just wanted to make sure that number I'm working for, and then when we talk about the operations, we can take it, and I can peel back the onion.
Yeah. What you can go into the 90.
Three on, it's the one that's dated November 5th, 2011, and 2010. Folders. Because this is a good summary for me to get started, and
Yeah.
then peel the onion from there.
Yeah, compare the financial audit 990. That's where the numbers come. Is the 90.
So if you back the sports activities out of back to depreciation, it's not real money. If you take that expenses there of 400,000, you take out the depreciation, it goes into occupancy,
Utilities.
$70,000 a year in utilities.
Absolutely, and then that's why I gave you I'm gonna give this here, which shows you
No.
that's normal.
I
How much utilities are for this building? One thing we do though is look our maintenance costs. That's why I want to compare the other clubs. If maintenance is little to nothing of the building, and that's because volunteers, the court service, those partnerships that I show you on there, they say thousands of dollars. Those are the people who cut the grass. They do the building. They paint. It's just a tremendous that the courts are providing to the club. But again, we count it as in kind.
Mr. Wilson?
why?
Ask my auditor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, so you indicated that the operating costs are around 110. That's
That's estimate.
so that is a bare bones, just so everyone understands, it's a complete bare bones minimum cost that it basically, the cost to keep the shell of the building up, the roof on, the lights on, and at a reasonable temperature, even though it's except in the summertime. But ideal is what the board's looking for to go back to an executive director and more staff. I mean, we had previously when times were a little bit better. We had office staff, an executive director, and we didn't have to lean so heavily on the volunteers. Most the documentation Mr. Brown's chair shows clubs of this size or that handle this many programs, this many participants have that professional backbone there. And so I think that it's, I want to hear that that's a very balanced number.
Yeah, that's what we one day the club gonna be. I mean, it's just gonna come down to the having people in the right. It's gonna happen one day. Right now, what we're doing is we're doing what the mission tells us, and we're using those partners to provide all of this. Those are the ones that are the next thing you'll see power hour. We're using a power hour. In other words, we partner in place. It goes picks up its go. Bring them to club, give them homework, tutoring, and those type things. That's gonna happen one day. I got the understand because this is the largest club of the state. It's gonna happen. Child care. That's not in there. What's gonna be also to do that? That's gonna happen one day. Because we need affordable child care. That's how they go back to work and do whatever they need to. It's gonna happen.
What happen if you
Well, I believe it's going to be that's going to happen one day. Okay, it comes down to having the right backing. We don't have that right now. That's what it comes down, and that's what I got in 2004. You had to walk in and see what I saw, and I had pictures. I would on my fire to go to a bathroom. I did. Mr. Lewis here, the congressman. I get it. How bad this is, but no one could look at Nobody. We saw in 2004. I closed down a child care center. That was to this community. Those things are going to happen one day. I had a conference. That's what the community wants. Last year, and you in here, you used the word curve, and that's exactly how many people did you? And last year we served over 6,000 people at that club. 6,000. That's community. I knock on 100 doors in this community. Ask them, do you support? I was out in the voting. During the poll, I have over 500 signatures. I gave away 1,100 turkeys. I got those signatures. The community supports the Boys and Girls Club. So if I can go knock on 9 out of 10 doors, and ask you, would you support the Boys and Girls Club? They tell me yes. What's wrong with this? What's wrong with our government? One day they're going to have the backing, and that's because the communities. So my recommendations, I have some recommendations I believe should be put forth to this community because that's what we want. I'm part of this community. All of us, most up here has been involved with the Boys and Girls in some manner. You know, it was the thing at first. Well, who do you serve? You serve people outside. That's what I heard. But then last week, I heard organizations come up here and get audit servicing people outside the county. I hear that. Oh, you're building. Ooh, what about your? It's the biggest asset that it's worth $2.1 million. It's 60,000 square feet. It sits in the center. It's the highest point in the community. It's a historic facility. It's providing services for children and this community. So it is my opinion that you're absolutely right that one day this is going to and that's our task force. I'm here for the questions. You mentioned about the taxes. Let's get that taken care of. You know, as you embarrassed about that. No, I'm not. Let's get it there. No, when the club owed $3 million in taxes for the casinos, that's embarrassing. You know, not the fact that we're not able to pay for that amount. So I think it's a community. It's embarrassing for what's down. I drive past it every morning that I go to work, and I look up there and see that missing. It's embarrassment. Community. We need to get together as adults, start helping our children. And my thing is that board when I first came there. What are you guys doing? You know what's going on here, and it comes down to it's a bunch of Spanish kids and aren't presented. Well,
Mr. Brown, if I could. So what you heard last week were other youth programs in the city. The youth programs aren't asking for any money. So we what they're doing is what they're doing. So just talk for a second. I'll give you the floor. The other thing that I think you heard last week was every one of the groups, if not everyone, said that they don't turn any kids away. So everybody's got their own program. Don't turn any kids away. All I'm saying is that you can't ask. We're a creature of the city. You can't ask the city to say I'm gonna benefit this organization over this organization. The city is Laurel Boys and Girls Club. City agency. It's not a county agency. It's an independent agency. Do you agree with that?
I agree with it, but come back to what Boys and Girls Clubs have done with their governments. They are partners of their government. That's not what's going here. And going back to last week, all I'm telling you, the club has been chastised for. I got to
hear any chastise you last.
No. I'm talking about as far as where our members from
what happened.
Right, but I'm talking about where our members come from. I've had people tell me that it was up to me. I shut the club down. Okay? And it comes down to who you're serving. Why don't you George County and talk? This has been to me. So Howard County. We have chastised for who we service. So this is what I hear this last week, and I'm like, wow. I spent a tremendous amount of time on getting those numbers, the statistics, and all of this together to show our folks come from. Only to hear it last week.
Well, I think that was wrong. Those clubs were doing this to the community.
No, I'm not saying those clubs are wrong. You don't hear me. I commend those clubs because they're helping children.
So where was disrespect from last week?
No. What I'm telling you is they were a part for who they serve. His club has been chastised who they serve. That's what I'm saying to you.
You didn't hear it being chastised here.
Exactly. I'm telling the club story. That's what you need to do.
I understand.
And the club story is that the club is chastised for who they service.
I can't.
That's what I'm saying to you. And they've been chastised for their building. Okay.
Next meeting to talk about building.
Exactly. So this is all I'm saying. This will be on record that those groups came before us last week, and they're being supported with our facilities. Are they not getting
the same access facility
right,
that any other group in the city gets?
But exactly. But what I'm saying to you is I want it on record that the club has been chastised for who they service. And we're telling the story.
I get.
And I'm happy now to see that it doesn't matter where you come from. That's right. It doesn't matter where you come. Even though 81% of our that we serve come from Prince George's County, the Laurel Boys and Girls Club has been chastised for other 19%.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. I'm glad now that it's before this task force.
I have a question. So Boys and Girls Club took control of the building in 2002.
Correct.
For $4. So were there any, I mean, maybe you weren't on board at that time, but was there any due diligence in terms of estimating future capital costs, future operating expenses, and was there any detailed discussion or written reports as to how that was going to be funded? Because clearly we're still having this problem. If no one gets a building for $1 and expects that it's paid for, mysteriously on the sky. So I'm just trying to have an understanding of what was the club's understanding of how the operation seems to be prohibiting you from actual programming and other things that you need because you can't prove that you can cover operation. What were those discussions in terms of this would be paid for on a year-to-year basis?
I wasn't there in 2000, but the club was given the building for $1, and they're a Boys and Girls Club. That's the only thing that I could figure out. As far as going, how much it cost the city did that. City went in. Mayor Frank Casula sent down Flynn and his group, and they came and they looked at the building. That okay, the building, and you had that it cost us $3.something million to do repairs. So at that time, city decided that we don't want that building. We'll go ahead and that's a good thing. Give it to the Girls Club.
No.
Okay, so
I was on the city council at that time. That's not what was said. We tried every day from Sunday to convince the club not to take
Okay,
that building.
but all I could do is look at documentation. What I have.
All of it is, we served on the council. We did not recommend. We said if the club wants it, we would get first refusal. But in fact, I was involved in those discussions. Try to talk the club out of it.
Did you guys recommend that the club?
We said we.
But did you not recommend that they building to the hub?
No.
Okay. Documentation that I read was that it is amended.
Well, you're saying we don't want it in the club. The club wants it. They can have it.
Okay. But either
that wasn't
right,
the same.
But to answer someone, the building is not the club's problem. Went over to you about what maintenance cost is. The maintenance cost is minimal. They're getting money to do the capital part of it, the funding to do the capital part of it. We always get community development block grants, and we get bond bills to do the capital
But the
portion.
issue is
of
the
bill.
operational costs, and so there has to be diligence done to determine how that's going to be paid, and I'm just trying
No,
to.
operational cost is different from capital.
No, I understand,
Right, right,
but I'm
so-
trying to understand what due diligence the club did, and how it was going to cover that going forward.
Operational cost. I have no idea. You had to ask Lionel that. He was 2002. So I don't know what their thinking was during that period. But had I been sitting in there, because that's just the first thing that I looked at from my perspective when I got here. Is this viable? I look at it as yes, because it's a 60,000 square foot historical that has to be taken. Can't plow down. It's 80,000 buildings on the story. It's already zoned as recreational and educational. So I looked at all that and believed that the community, because the communities I came from, communities that actually support clubs. So I look at in that nature that okay, this is something that will be great for this community. And that the community would love to have this community.
Mr. Brown, if we could table, we're going to do a whole session on the building. Unless there's something really pressing tonight on the building.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Respectfully, this has been on the record since 1965. In the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, advised Boys Club not to take the building.
This government.
That community. The city government is representing community as much as you are, sir.
Negative.
I don't believe anybody in the city elected you Boys and Girls Club.
No, you're wrong. Somebody in this elected me president of the Boys and Girls Club.
Let me just say a few things. He looked at it, asbestos. We know what's the Boys Club. Now you sit there and say the city.
Yes, when cut because it's self-centered where the seniors are.
Brown, if we could.
Hear other side of the story. Side of the story. City told them not to take the building. Not to build the building. Do you know why the West Wing was operated by the city? They borrowed $200,000 from Central payments. We took it over, paid them a rent so they could pay that. I mean, we all a long time. And we all know history because we were involved with it. We knew all about this.
And then give me a reason why you would come to my building and try to get me to sell you the building.
Mr. Brown, I look at the timeline, and you have that I met with you. I've never met you before prior to this task force. You spoke to, well, I'll tell you what, sir, I have very extensive records. I'm sure you do. So don't you give us the date and the time of that meeting?
Mr. DiPietro,
You met with
respectfully the
Mike
mayor one time, but I'm not going to sit up here. I have no reason to sit up here and say that I met with you in the Monster over at St. Mary's.
In all due respect, Mr. Brown, testified before this committee in 2005. Frank Casula told you to get involved in the Boys and Girls Club.
2004.
He died in 2001, Mr. Brown.
No.
When Uncle Frank I deny, Mr. Chairman.
It
May have been.
I'm not even going to argue with you, Mr. DeBate.
You said that.
You have Christy Mills. You have Christy Mills right there. Chris Mills can tell you that during that time, Sula and Mary Miller, and they actually come down here. It was a problem that we had over at the community center where they're allowing kids to come into that building. So it have been 2001, 2002, or whatever it may have been. The bond is that I met with Frank Sula, and we both came to Boys Club. I have no reason to sit here and I have no reason to sit here and put out a person's name like that. But me and you met, sir. Me and you met. Just like you don't remember me and you meeting, met. You said to me.
And just tell dates about Frank Casula don't exist.
Okay.
Mr. Wilson, can I say one thing? I've listened to the board, I've listened to everybody say their piece. For me, taxpayer, and a member of this community for so many years. What I ask you, because you are current or be member of the council, if we could possibly, and I've been saying this for years, put a referendum in place and ask the community, do they recommend that the Boys and Girls Club put into our city, whether it be the budget or support wise, and let the community be not us up here at the table, not the members that like this gentleman represents our community. We can ask the community, because I polled the community time and time over the last 3 years. I polled and I bring the forms and everything of the signatures and what their needs were. I think all of this bickering isn't the place to.
We're trying
to get to the root of things. But for me, as a taxpayer of this community, someone was to ask me on a referendum, do you support the Boys and Girls Club, and would you support them? Whether it be increase my tax dollars by $10, or let them check yes or no. And then from representing our community.
There's lots of ways to get referendums on the record.
I appreciate it. But that for me, not just as this committee, as a volunteer, as a father, and a person that's watching what's going on with this community. I want to get beyond all of this arguing back and forth.
We're all here.
I agree, but I believe that a referendum and asking the community what they think is the answer. That's our answer.
Well, that's one of the findings or recommendations.
That's just one for me as a taxpayer. Ask me, and me.
We're all taxpayers, but I get your.
I ask you too. You can say yes or no. That's a simple fact of the matter. This whole case, when it comes to our kids in this community, the simple is do we support them or don't?
So we need to move on. It's 9 o'clock. I
agree.
appreciate the discussion. I appreciate you taking time today at our next meeting, which is May 8th. We'll be able to dig into the building in depth. Meet next week. On the 2 weeks on the 28th.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Mr. Brown stated he did meet with Mayor Casula. However, 1999, prior to April 1999, also an employee of the city. I retired in 1999 and didn't turn city until April 2002. So I have no reference other than being in myself. I have no official reference for that 3-year period when I was not here.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. All right, unless there's anything else pressing, I would.
If I can just say that I want to thank everyone for their hard work. The point of the matter, what advised the club to buy it. Andre Gingle said Andre Gingle came before us when we were on the council, said that the club should get it. And that's the great thing about this board is so inspired by the work of everyone on the board. So I just want to thank everyone. I know that sometimes it's contentious, but I really respect each and every one of you and the amount of work and effort that everyone's putting in. I just wanted to let that.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Unless there's
Also, can I put something on the record? I just want this to go on the record that the reason Mr. DiPietro and the Mansour was recognition of the mayor. So that those putting together.
You're talking about Mike Wilson from Sarich.
I can call.
That's okay. That's who you're talking about.
And you probably could contact him. He hopefully, you know, he'll be able to tell you that meeting did occur.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that as an issue. We're good. You're good, Jeremy. We'll have a public hearing unless it's. Go ahead. Since you're here, thank you. Give him an address, please.
Mr. Thomas.
You're on. I don't think.
Matthews, 15016 Lawland Place. You know, as I said, that's very for meeting. I've been in it 52 years. Certainly, I want to commend Since 11, he has a very aggressive task force where he's representing the Boys and Girls Club. So I have one thing to say to the taxpayer in the city. Mr. Wilson, the task force handpicked by mayor. I think the very first week you mentioned about the mission and the duty of the task force. I think it's very important that we keep to that task force. So have with Mr. DiPietro, and even the question about Mr. Frederick about who owns McCullough Field and who doesn't own it. I don't know if it's a task given by Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Matthews, I appreciate your kind words, but it actually is. I mean, we're here to get the information. So sometimes, who thinks they own will win, and what does the phrase give me? I believe that a lot of the issues that we're having is just miscommunicating. What's the difference between a participant and a member? I'm not trying to say which is the right way, but I think we all now better understand what the meaning of those words mean. What's the meaning of what you heard from Mr. Frederick was what's the meaning of it. So I appreciate your words, but we are here to dig into this. That's part of our job.
Certainly, I'm still at your first meeting. You clearly went over the mission and the assignment and the duties of the task force.
Do you believe we're outside of our bounds?
I think we certainly were. Certainly we were at the end what Mr. DiPietro just went through. And as a chairman, like saying, as a taxpayer and as a resident of the city of Laurel for 52 years, what just happened shouldn't happen.
Well, I think it was a disagreement of a date.
I'm just merely my.
Appreciate your.
I'm saying as a taxpayer, as a duty and assignment and the mission given to you by the mayor, who hand select and handpick each and one of you on this. Clearly know it hasn't what he wanted from this task force.
Sure. There's nothing else. Anything else? We're adjourned.
We are. Can I speak with you for a second? You don't want to speak.